Membership fees apply after free trial. Cancel anytime.
Can I be real for a second? That goal you have to exercise and eat better, you really can do it. But nobody is going to do it for you. And nobody has to, because you can do it if you have the right tools and a community that cares about helping you get results. And that's us, Beachbody. It's as convenient as your TV or laptop, but you need to decide that you're worth it. Let us help you succeed. Here's how. Go to beachbody.com to claim your free membership and start feeling great.
Under cold Midwest skies, something lurks through the dark. From the rolling hills to the flatlands, they move through the fields. They are cryptids of the corn.
I'm Justin.
And I'm Jay.
And we are your guides. We're going to peel back the corn stalks and show you what's on the other side. Jay's laughing. Alright, so today's episode is extremely opinionated by me. Jay had no idea what we were doing today, coming in.
Yep.
Which is fine, I didn't tell him. So we're going to talk about Bigfoot migration, general migration terms, because there's kind of a lot of misconception about what migration really means. When people hear the word migration, they think of super long distance migration. And that's not exactly... What are you smiling about?
What you said earlier when we were talking about...
don't.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, super long migration. Like when we see... not many North American mammals do that anymore. But during the last ice age, mammoths did that, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of our stuff did that. But there's a lot more than long-distance migration. We're going to talk about that. It's been a long time since I've used PowerPoint. So I actually have a PowerPoint, and I may bring this up at some of the conferences. Oh, that's all the news.
Oh, yeah. Front of house stuff.
Yeah, I skipped right over it. Real quick. We're professionals. Now, we're signed up. The Ohio Bigfoot Conference, the Hocking Hills Bigfoot Conference. I got that last night. I got that confirmation email.
Oh, okay, cool.
So Jay doesn't even know about that.
Yeah, that's news to me.
The Michigan Bigfoot Conference and Bigfoot and Brews. So that's
what's that?
It's like a Bigfoot conference.
Okay.
That the Uncomfortable, he puts it on.
Okay, is that up in Michigan?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got 2 Michigans, 2 Ohio's. And I might sign us up for a West Virginia one.
Oh.
We'll see. Don't want to drive too far yet.
The foothills of the Appalachians.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that. Like, I've kind of split the U.S., Canada, and Alaska into zones when we talk about this. Because this is highly opinionated. Sorry, guys. I have to leave my phone on this episode. I have some family stuff going on. So I need to be able to get my calls and stuff like that. So you might hear it ding a couple times. What were I saying? Oh, Ohio kind of falls into a bunch of different categories. The Midwest, it's not quite, when we start talking about the North, it's not quite the North. And it's Appalachia, but not quite the Appalachians. So it's kind of...
It's around the edge.
It's a weird zone.
Yeah.
And we're going to... So let me move up a slide. So we're going to talk about types of migration. And these are specific types I've selected in aspect to Bigfoot, to Sasquatch. In the U.S., it's a seasonal migration. Most of the time, that's what we consider long-distance migrations, but it's not always. A lot of these, you'll see when we get into cutting this up, a lot of these migration types are mixes. Not, an animal doesn't have to use one migration type, and it doesn't have to fully fill out one migration type. So just because it's seasonal doesn't mean it has to walk 600 miles a year, like what we think.
Right. I always thought, when I think of migration, I think of traveling to get out of the weather.
See, and weather is sometimes a big factor.
Mm-hmm.
Food's another. Breeding, rearing young, but that's a whole slide later on. We'll get into that. But yeah, there's a lot of factors for migration. Competition's a big one.
Just getting out of the way of something.
And it's not even competition with your own species sometimes. Sometimes it's just excuse me.
Food chain competition.
Yeah. Mountain lions will often move out of areas with heavy wolf activity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because they fight a lot. Most of the time they don't ever see each other. It's the mountain lion is smart enough to know that when the wolf packs are in, it's going to be harder to hunt.
Yep.
And I'd rather go to an area where it's going to be a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
Or, it'd probably fight another mountain lion for its territory, but it's not going to mess around with another predator. It's just, predators are mostly very intelligent animals. They don't fight when they don't have to. There's no point to it, because an injury's death.
Right, yeah, essentially.
Nomadic migration. So this one's kind of broke down into multiple short stays through the year, and they're often returning to the same spots.
Mm-hmm.
So it may kind of be seasonal, it may be food-oriented, it may be food exhaustion. So this family unit stays in this area for 2 months out of the year, maybe. They may stay longer, they may stay shorter. They'll stay until they exhaust the resources in that area. But they already have kind of predetermined spots they're going to move.
Go to next, yeah.
A good example of this, I guess seasonal migration, a good example of that one, long distance, would be, we don't really have anything anymore, but buffalo, mastodons, mammoths used to do that, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A good nomadic one is box turtles.
Uh-huh.
Box turtles will actually they do it every year. It's so crazy. They have little areas they'll hang out in and then move on, and then the area and move on. So that's why they say it's really important you don't move them around, because literally they have these areas pre-established.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, it takes them years to develop these patterns.
Mm.
And then they'll stick to it the rest of their life.
And if you move them, it's like...
Yeah, it's like, they're not very fast, so...
A whole new world.
But, multiple short stays. You'll see, that's probably the most common one. Nomadicy is a form of migration.
Which, humans used to do that, right?
Yeah. And some groups still do that. I'm trying to think.
See, I didn't think nomadic was migration.
A lot of people don't. It is a type of migration.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're just friggin' smiling at me. Anyways, yeah, it is a type of migration. It is moving an area to follow resources. It's not a seasonal migration. It's not moving because of the seasons.
Right.
They probably don't care.
Just resource driven.
Yeah, it's resource driven.
Mm-hmm.
Snowline migration. You can see I have a little mark there. This bothered me so much. There's a word for it, and I had all my biology books from college, and I know it's in one of them, and I was tearing through them, and I couldn't find the word. I couldn't find it on Google, and it's making me mad.
Snowline migration.
So a lot of these mountain range animals will literally migrate with the snow line every year.
Yeah.
So it's kind of seasonal, but it's not long distance. A lot of times they're not leaving, 4 or 5 miles from their summer or whatever habitat. But they're going up. They may go up 1,500 feet, 1,600 feet.
Yeah.
Or, 4,000 feet. Elk are a good example of this. Elk do this every year in most of the mountain range habitats. They follow the snow line. They go down to the bottom of the valley when it's, when the snow comes all the way down. They follow all the way back up. And the reason is food availability.
Are elk much bigger than deer, like around here?
Yeah.
They are a lot bigger?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't remember the elk at the house? You've never seen the elk?
I've never seen an elk.
Oh, we got one at the house hanging out.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check that out.
So a big deer in Ohio is like 200 pounds.
Yeah.
A small elk's like 800.
Oh my gosh, well, way bigger.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
They're cows. They're roughly cow-sized.
Interesting to know.
They're tall and kind of lanky looking.
Yeah.
Like deer are, but they're roughly small cow weight.
Gotcha. Okay.
Moose are big cow weight.
You're right, yeah.
So yeah, snowline migration, elk do that. Home range. This is kind of similar to nomadic, but it's typically a smaller range and it's more regularly passed through.
Okay.
So this isn't a type of migration necessarily. This is I'm kind of trying to explain the difference between home range and nomadicy.
Okay, gotcha.
Bobcats, mountain lions, they have a big home range, but they're constantly walking through that home range. White-tailed deer are another one.
Kind of like in The Lion King when Simba's at the thing with his dad.
Yeah, that's their home range.
Yeah.
Everything the light touches.
Yep.
But, so that's kind of what that is, home range. I guess that's just trying to split because it's hard to explain it with nomadacy because it kind of sounds like nomadacy.
Yeah.
But they're passing through it much regularly. They're using all those resources at any given time.
It's almost like this, like you live in a small town.
Yeah. That's your home range. And I have a little note. Many populations heavily mix these.
Okay.
And a lot of times, it's heavily individualized. You may not have and this is all speculation from the reports and evidence we have. I want to make that very clear before I get wrong on something. This is just a biological take, using some basic biological terms, trying to put it to an animal that we both believe exists. I've seen this animal, so I'm just trying to make some biological sense out of this to explain. But just because I have this Bigfoot in a zone, because I have zones we're going to break down later.
Ooh.
And doesn't mean that every Bigfoot in that zone does the exact same thing.
Right.
Quite the opposite. We're just going off of stories, averages, what it looks like. Any questions so far?
No, this is pretty straightforward.
Okay.
But I'm learning here. Didn't know some of this stuff. Like, I didn't
I'm going
know.
to get you trained up for these Bigfoot conferences.
Yeah, you do, because you definitely do. Because who knows what I'm going to be talking about.
And Jason's like, that doesn't matter. They ride around in a freaking ball of light.
Yeah, exactly. They're
Not saying they don't. Nobody knows anything for sure.
They're migrating.
My
through
take
dimensions.
on it, and that could be my take on it's always been biological. They always say the woo.
Yeah.
I don't subscribe to that theory a lot myself. Doesn't make it any less
Plausible.
reasonable.
Yeah.
Just not what my personal thoughts are. But we don't have one. There's not one. We don't know.
There's no Bigfoot expert.
Yeah, that's what I would keep saying.
But maybe one day you'll have to update this PowerPoint to include dimensional migration.
Dimensional shifting.
Migration theory.
Orb theory.
Yeah.
Continental U.S. zones of Bigfoot populations. So, Zone 1 is Pacific Northwest, Alaska, and Western Canada. So, kind of that whole strip.
Yeah.
And we'll go into these habitat types and stuff like that. So, I kind of broke it down. It's called a biome. It's a certain habitat type dominates this region.
Okay.
Does it mean the whole region's this habitat? It means, let's say, over 50% of this region is this type of habitat.
Gotcha.
Or these mixes of habitats. That's called a biome. The Midwest U.S.
Which is where we are.
Yep. New England and Eastern Canada. This is a weird one to say. Northern South. And what we mean by that is Appalachia. Because when you say the South, Pennsylvania, West Virginia are counted in the South.
Which is weird.
But they're way up here. So I have it broken down as Appalachian and the Deep South, which is what you think of,
The Deep South.
Yeah. Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, some parts of Texas. Texas kind of gets split into several of these.
In hell.
In what?
Hell.
Yeah.
The Deep South.
Yeah. You ever been into a swamp in Louisiana in the summer?
No.
It is.
It is hell.
Just the amount of insects.
Oh, I can't imagine.
It's worse in the UP of Michigan in the summer.
Really?
They have such a smaller breeding window, or living window,
Yeah.
that they are insane.
Like rabid when they're there?
They'll carry you off. And the desert regions of the U.S., the last one. Any questions about how that's broken down?
No, it's pretty straightforward.
And for example, when you get into the desert region, there's a lot of it that's not desert.
Gotcha. Okay.
That is probably I'll say it in the PowerPoint later too. That is my least strong suit with this PowerPoint so far.
The desert?
Yeah, because it's the region it's broken up to probably could be broken up even more.
So it's a diverse biome.
It has multiple biomes, and it's kind of hard to point a finger and say this is what data shows. And this is just the data I've researched. It doesn't mean, I guess how should I say it? This is very fluid.
It's not a definitive take.
This is very fluid. This is just trying to help put some biological terms to some of the sightings we have and stuff like that for certain regions.
Justin's guide rails to Bigfoot migration.
There you go. So we're going to talk about, doesn't this PowerPoint look super nice?
It does. It looks professional.
Yeah, I am. Pacific Northwest, Western Alaska, or it's supposed to say Western Canada and Alaska. This region includes California, Washington, Oregon, Western Canada, and Alaska. The most of this habitat is temperate rainforest.
Mm-hmm.
So we have super high rainfall. There's multiple mountain ranges in this area, and heavy brushland.
Mm-hmm.
So brushland is the stuff that's not quite rainforest, but it's in between most of the mountain ranges. It's your low, scrubby stuff. It dominates a lot of this. There's not a lot, in this specific region, there's not a lot of grassland.
Yeah.
But it's kind of brushland. It's scrubland.
Right, yeah. Anyone that's been in it or knows what you're talking
you'll
about.
know. It sucks to walk through.
Exactly. You can't run through it.
Okay. So this is like heavy rainforest. Super biodiverse. But not our most biodiverse region in the U.S. by far.
This ain't the West ain't? That's interesting.
Not even close.
Is Ohio probably the most diverse?
No.
Oh, okay.
Ohio is the most biologically studied entity in the world.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
For what reasons?
It's where some of the early, so off topic, some of the early biologists that developed several different fields were all born in Ohio.
Huh.
Like Troutman was like the big U.S. fish guy. He was born here in Ohio.
Interesting.
So it's just like, it was a plant guy. I can't think of all their names. I know the fish guy because I was a fish guy. But yeah, that's why Ohio. It's just because it was their backyards. These guys that were developing these sciences.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why. But it is the single most biologically studied entity in the entire world.
That's pretty awesome.
And we still find new stuff.
Ohio's there to surprise you every day.
Mm-hmm. Stories and evidence of these populations. So from what we have, it's believed to mostly be snowline and home range migrations. So they kind of overlap. Their home range may be this whole valley.
Yeah.
But during this part of the year, they're in the lower sections of the valley, and they move up as food becomes available, which just makes sense. That is a type of migration. A lot of people wouldn't recognize that if you don't do some of these biological studies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's hard to look at that as a migration, but it is. It's following a resource. They're moving up when more food becomes available up the mountainside.
Just like a small migration.
Yeah,
but still...
that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's food driven, most likely, as far as we can tell. Any questions about this one?
No, it's pretty cool.
And I'm gonna hammer this out a little better, and then I'll put the PowerPoint online for everybody, so everybody at home will be able to see the pictures and everything. All right, home sweet home, the Midwest, and Ohio's like Texas. It gets pushed and shoved a little bit into some of these categories because of biomes.
Yeah.
But most of the Midwest is farmlands, with exceptions to way north and way south. We have Wisconsin, the UP of Michigan, Minnesota, North Dakota.
Yeah.
These still are wildly farmlands, but you have some big forest.
And big lake areas.
And same with Southern Ohio, Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana. You have forest. But the major biome is farmland. Evidence of sightings for this area, for most of the part, it's believed this is your area, that this is seasonal migration.
Yeah.
We have, especially Ohio, we've talked about this, sightings spike. It seems, as far as we can tell with the data we have, it seems that sightings really spike in the early spring and late fall, which suggests that they're always here, but they're heavily moving those times of year.
Seasonal.
Yeah. There's something, and it might not be the weather that's driving it. It could be breeding. It could be going to safer locations just to raise young.
Not true.
It doesn't have to be weather driven. I don't believe these creatures are very shaken by the weather.
Yeah, it didn't seem like they would be.
But it could be food driven. It could be easier to go south for, a lighter winter is more food.
Right, exactly, yeah.
They're not moving because they're cold. They might be moving because,
it's good game or something.
Stuff like that.
The good berries they like.
And it seems most of this population will spend their summers in the northern parts of this region. So, Michigan has a lot of summer sightings. Wisconsin has got a lot of summer and early fall sightings. And then they'll spend their winters in the southern part of this region. Ohio, Indiana, Illinois. That's when most of these line of sightings happen is when they're moving through. It seems.
Yeah.
From what evidence is presented. And the southern part has a lot of sightings in the winter. Ohio, Hocking, Wayne National has a lot of winter sightings into early spring. And a lot of the aggressive sightings Hocking has been in like April, May. So that could be that's the time they're maybe getting ready to move with the young.
Yeah.
And, you know, these animals are not very aggressive normally. You know, it's very rare to see true aggression from these things. But that's one area, it's so weird, that's one area they do. A lot of fake charges, heavy rock throws. You're seeing stuff that's a little extra for them. You know, it's not something you'd normally see. So that's this region. Any questions?
The good old Midwest. I wonder how high is Minnesota on the list of sightings and stuff? Do you know?
Not off the top of my head, I do not. But I know they have a lot of dogman, and same with Wisconsin.
Interesting.
In Michigan.
You know, I've been up in Minnesota, like northern Minnesota. That's what made me think of it, saying like the northern states and stuff. But like, it's so remote up there, and there's just so many lakes and trees.
And that's another thing that this thing is lacking.
Yeah. Is
these regions that are remote. Yeah, there's less sightings.
Right.
There's less people.
There's no one there.
So is it because they're not there that time of the year? Or is it because people aren't there that time of the year?
And I can imagine just stepping off in the woods somewhere up there. You just be lost. There's nothing, and it just goes on and on.
That's one thing. Anybody that says there's no place for these things to exist, I will take you out to Wayne National, and I will point you in a direction. You know there's a road here, you know there's a road to the other side. Walk to the other road.
Yeah.
And just see how much room there is.
Right, yeah.
I mean, we did a walk just to Nick's house from Cantwell Cliffs, and that's a half mile.
Yeah, and there
was creeks, rivers, holes, caves, hides, you know.
Yep, all over.
Nothing you'd see from the road.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so that is one thing that this kind of study would fall short on, is it's not taking into account seasonal variations of human populations in these areas.
It's true.
Are hunters are more Bigfoot being seen in the Midwest because that's when hunters are in the woods. You know, I haven't looked at that heavily. That could be example. Early spring, late fall.
A correlation.
Turkey season, deer season.
Yeah.
Is it because just we're out, you know, and it's just the likelihood of an encounter goes up, and that could be. So, like I said, this is all up, you know.
In theory.
This is all in the air, but this is just trying to put some more biological data on these things. And just like any good biologist, I will change my opinions with the access to new and more information. And that's what everybody should do. Knowledge is power. Yeah, your opinions are allowed to change. Because I feel one way, you know, one week, and I read some other stuff, and I'm like, and, you know, it's allowed to change your opinion on things. That's called growth. Yeah, and there are some people in this community that will die on their hills. Oh, yeah, for sure. And I will not. Yeah. I have my beliefs, and everybody else has their beliefs, and you should. You should have differences of opinion, and you should talk about them. I will never argue with anybody. I'll talk about this all day with somebody that doesn't believe in this, and that's fine. And we'll be, as long as everybody's respectful, everybody. Nobody has to believe this. This is just, I don't know. It's just thought, like, and a lot of people, especially more so nowadays, don't even entertain the idea of discussing an idea that they can't fathom to be real or doesn't exist in their reality. Like, nope, it's not even a topic of conversation. Like, we already talked about with the orbs and stuff. That's not something. I know they exist. I don't think they're Sasquatch, but it's so odd how often they co-occur. And UFOs, and you know, maybe they're just as interested. Right? Yeah. You know, well, these things are weird. All right, moving on from the Midwest. All right, next, New England and Eastern Canada. This range is it may not be what you think. A lot of people hear the New England and they think of the big cities. Right, yeah. And that is such a small part of this part of the country. I mean, it's literally just this little coastline. Yeah, basically just the coastline. And then once you get off, it is forest. It is mountain range. This is considered a large temperate forest region. there's several mountain ranges in there. There are no big mountain ranges, but there are several mountain ranges. When I say big, I mean
Like
Rockies.
Rocky Mountain big, yeah.
Yeah.
No, not over here.
But there are mountains. There are mountain ranges. It has extremely dense forest, super high city populations, and farmland. So this is kind of a mix when we look at this. But I guess this includes Maine, New York, most of New England, eastern Canada. We have like a lot of moose in this area, bear. I'm not sure. I know there's a lot of black bear. I'm not sure about the grizzly population. I know it's somewhere close to this area.
Yeah.
I don't know how much overlap there is.
Okay.
But yeah. So let's see. Waterfalls, major bodies of water, a lot of water, rivers and that stuff. Most of these sightings records in this area, we believe that the Bigfoot population seems to move with a mix of nomadic and seasonal migrations. But these areas are such extreme differences in habitats, it's hard to nail down one. Because this is a big area. So when you look at some of these Bigfoot, they're probably living in the mountain ranges.
Right.
They're probably snowline migrators. With home range snowline migrator. But when you look at some of these giant forest guys, they're probably nomadic migrators. Hanging out in this area for a while. Because you'll have spikes in this area.
Not just, nothing consistent.
You'll see a bunch of spikes in this area, and then they'll disappear. And then maybe, it may not be the same time every year, so that's kind of where it's not seasonal. That's more nomadic.
Yeah.
But when they're there, they're there. And then when they're not there, sightings kind of die off.
Yeah, nothing.
So that's how we look at that. Any questions about this or any comments, concerns, liabilities?
I might actually go to a state park in Massachusetts, what is that state? It's
Massachusetts is a state.
Yeah, below that, the next, not New Jersey, but Massachusetts. So, yeah.
Yes.
Is that what I said the first time?
Yes.
Massachusetts is that. Yeah, Connecticut. Duh.
No.
Connecticut, New York.
What are you going there for?
One of my friends lives there, and in their backyard they have a state park.
Well, why aren't we going? Bigfoot out there.
That's what I might try to see if I can set something like that up. That would be interesting. But I've been to the East Coast before, and it's once you get to the coast, it's all
city, and
yes.
But I guess this part is just that is not the entire, this
it's not.
Region, the
Right,
New England region.
When driving through it, you're going to drive through a lot of trees and a lot of farmland.
I had buddies from New York, not New York,
the state,
but from New York, and most of the time their snow in their city they'd pile it up and it wouldn't melt till June.
Really? That's craziness.
And their city was like 400 people.
Yeah.
And everybody had snowmobiles for the winter. Nobody drove a car.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And they believed in Bigfoot. They never seen one, but they're like, there's so much land up here where there's no people. Yeah. You're like, there's bear, there's moose. He's like, you can go around the corner, there's a moose. And you didn't even hear it. And that's a 2,000-pound, that's a big animal.
It's a huge animal. And we don't normally think about that, thinking New England, East Coast at all. Normally, I guess that's just from my perspective.
No, I think that's most of the rest of the country. When you hear, it's like when you hear California, you don't think of the forest, you don't think of rainforest, you think of beach and surfing and horrible cities. Yeah,
yeah, there you go.
You don't think of all of the natural beauties that are in California and how diverse. You ever think from high desert to...
You talking about like the blondes and the...
No.
Oh, okay. You're talking
There's
about
no natural beauties over there.
Oh, yeah, that's plastic beauties.
It's all plastic.
That's my bad.
But yeah. Anything else to add?
I don't know. That's good for East Coast. Okay. Or New England.
Yeah, it's kind of the same. Well, so we're going to get into the northern south.
The north-south.
We're going to call it Appalachia.
Yeah, that's a better...
So this kind of gets broken up. Pennsylvania, West Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee, and a little bit of Ohio. So Ohio is one of these that gets split. What was I going to say? This habitat includes the Smoky Mountains, rich forest, and active farmland. This is one of the most biodiverse places on the planet.
Interesting.
The Appalachians.
In our
backyard. Tennessee and Kentucky Tennessee itself is one of the most biodiverse locations in the world.
Tennessee is.
And it smokes most rainforest.
Okay.
With a number of species present.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Tennessee has more endangered species than a lot of the country combined that are present. A lot of it's amphibians, a lot of fish. There are some mammals and smaller mammals and stuff like that.
You got one off the top of your head or anything? Mammal, I don't know.
Mammal, no, they'd be like voles and stuff like that.
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
I'm not a big mammal guy.
True,
personally.
you're the fish guy.
But there's a lot of fish, a lot of amphibians. There are amphibians that are only found in Tennessee in the mountain range.
That's pretty sweet.
A lot of salamanders.
I was just going to say that. It's always a salamander.
They're frogs. But no, so this is extremely rich. Studies have been documented pretty regularly, which seems there's no seasonal variance in this region from the most part, with lots of sightings in hot spots, which points to more of a home-ranged animal with little moving out of that range. So yeah, a lot of this doesn't seem, these seem to be really home-bodied animals. They're always on this mountain, they're always on this valley.
Yeah.
They're all in.
And you hear stories about that, like that all the time,
Yeah.
too.
So when we talk about, these are the true, I think these are mostly home-ranged creatures, with a little bit of different, when I'm sure a juvenile male, when it comes to age, they get pushed out like every other animal, and they'll go somewhere else. But yeah.
Maybe a little mix of home range and a little mix of nomadic.
Yeah, that's a little different because they're, to prevent inbreeding. So when we look at mountain lions, bobcats, a female bobcat cub will stay right next to her mother's territory most of the time. After adulthood, they're pushed out a little bit, but not much. A male bobcat cub, when he gets pushed out, sometimes have been documented going over 600 miles in his first year.
Jeez. So
you can have, I got a map in front of me, you can have a bobcat from West Virginia getting pushed up to central Ohio.
Yeah. Huh.
So, and mountain lions do the same thing. Mountain lions and bobcats put a lot of time in their cubs.
Yeah.
Teaching them how to hunt. It's not very often seen two mountain lions together. They're a lot more secretive. Not very often to see a mountain lion. Bobcats, all the time. There's all kinds of, 2 or 3 bobcats are sighted. Luke has seen that when he was in Illinois like 4 or 5 times. A mom bobcat teaching 2 cubs how to hunt.
That's pretty sweet.
And, yeah. So we're comparing them similarly to that. Yeah. Bears a little bit too, not as much education when it comes to bears to their young, but it's more of just a protection till they're big enough.
Yeah.
So we're going to assume that they have something similar, where probably the females may stay in the same family unit forever. They may stay closer, but males will probably get pushed off. And that's just a biological need to prevent inbreeding. When you look at big cats, they don't know, we don't believe they know that that's why they need to be, but they have that built in.
Right, it's just
there. It's
in their programming.
Yeah. Any comments?
No, not so much on this one. I mean, we need to get out there more into the Appalachians. It's right in our backyard.
I think for long-term bigfooting, if you can go to the same area repeatedly, Appalachia is your area. You're gonna, those animals, I call them animals, we're animals, just so people at home understand. It's not a degrading term.
Yeah.
It's just a group. We are animals.
Yeah.
But no, I think your best results are from animals that learn you. Multiple visits and stuff like that. They know that you're not out there to do anything. I think that's when you get some of these better encounters. Is they're a little more comfortable. I don't think they're going to walk out and shake your hand. I don't think that's ever going to happen.
You have no faith.
I think you can have very enriching encounters.
Yeah.
From that kind. And I think this is a good area because I think these populations are very steadfast in their locations. And it doesn't mean a home range isn't 100 square miles. But, they're there. They know you're there.
Right, yeah. Before you know they're there, for sure.
Anything else in this bad boy?
And nope, other than that gray area, it looks like a chicken leg. Like a drumstick?
Oh, it does. It's also it's in Kentucky, so that's why.
So that, gosh, makes too much sense.
So the South, the deep South.
The deep South.
And this is Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. And just a little side note before we go into more. These Sasquatch are often in a very bad mood.
Okay.
And a lot of these sightings they don't seem dangerous, but they seem mad. And if you had all that fur and hair and you weighed 800 pounds...
In Louisiana?
Yeah, I wouldn't be happy either.
Yeah.
I've met Cajuns that sound scary. And they're fine. But, a northerner... they sound like they're screaming at you. You're like, oh gosh.
Yeah, what'd I do?
But yeah, so most of this habitat's wetlands, swamps, farmlands, grasslands, and mountain ranges. So like the Ozarks run through this area.
Okay.
Southern Appalachia. There's smaller mountain ranges through this area. The majority is between farmland, grassland, swamps, and wetlands. You gonna ask me the difference between a swamp and a wetland?
Yeah, what is the difference?
It's a big difference.
What is it?
It's a difference.
Oh. Insightful.
Glad I could clear that up for you.
Yeah.
No. So a wetland is like a giant area. There's not a whole lot of difference when you're looking at them, but from a biological standpoint, there is. Swamps are mostly sitting still water.
Oh, okay.
Even though a wetland doesn't look like it's moving,
right?
They are.
Yeah.
And they're more like a filter. Swamps can kind of be a little more stagnant.
Yep.
Higher algae contents. Wetlands have flow or filtration, and they're normally a lot bigger.
Yeah.
You don't see, in wetlands, normally, you don't see these giant swaths of water. A swamp's kind of like a lake. And a wetland's kind of like a big flat river.
Yeah. Swamp's like a big shallow lake almost. You could just say, just sitting there.
There's bayous, oxbow lakes. So bayou moves.
Okay.
An oxbow lake is a broken piece of river that doesn't move anymore.
I do know what that
is. And they
is.
can turn into swamps.
I remember those from
But that's
high
more
school.
of a generalist term. That you could interchange swamp and wetland a little bit. Wetland is a little more of a rigid term because they have a purpose.
Okay.
So a wetland does something, and that's that filtration aspect we were talking about for watersheds.
Interesting. Okay.
Swamps, you can call a lot of stuff a swamp. A swamp doesn't have a purpose behind the term. And once again, I only know that because I did wetland work.
Yeah.
Wetland work sucks.
Oh, I bet.
Because it's just...
Out in your waders?
Yeah, oh my gosh. No, I've almost died twice in a wetland. I'm pretty sure. One time, little story. We're doing pretty good on time. It's a little story, kids. When I did electrofishing surveys, this one thing's called a long line. So it's a wand is your positive, your tail is your negative. The current goes to the water, and the fish swim at the positive end, and you net them as they swim. Fish don't get knocked out or nothing like that normally. That's not the goal. The goal is to get them to swim so you can net them. We had one. So the long line's tied to me. So it's like a big extension cord that's attached to me by a belt. Like a lift belt.
Yeah.
So it's this big, huge, flat belt. And we're walking, and it's a little mucky, but not bad. You can feel a rock bottom. So normally there's a layer of sediment and then a hard pack. Whatever that hard pack is. And then I take one step and I'm instantly over my waders. And it's muck. And it's not letting go of me. Normally, I wouldn't panic yet. Because normally you fall. And that's what I felt like. I felt like I fell. Like, okay. Well, the generator will kick off and stuff like that. So I'm not frying myself.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I didn't come back up. I'm like, oh. And that's when I panicked. And the guy who's with me, Zach, he's still there, and he falls in. He's a lot lighter than me.
Yeah.
He gets out. I am, can't see. I am above my breast in this horrid smell. It smells like chemicals. It's not like rotting vegetation. This is, we were behind certain places. Muck is just pouring into my waders, and I'm getting sucked down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is it. I'm going to die. And I'm, laying on my back. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to, and I'm just not getting out. and Zach's ripping at the cord, trying to pull me out. He's grabbing the wand, trying to rip me out.
Yeah.
Eventually, I lay on my back enough, I finally broke suction.
Yeah.
And then I came out, and I was just like, I was so covered in muck, and it reeked of just chemical. And my boss is like, oh, we'll clean up, we'll do another site. And I'm like, you,
Yeah.
I ain't doing another site. We're going back to the hotel.
Yeah. That sounds awful.
It was awful.
Man.
That job got rough sometimes.
That'd be pretty scary getting sucked. Like, it's the suction part that would scare me. Like, uh-oh.
Yeah, so that's the difference between a swamp and a wetland.
Yeah, wetlands can kill you.
They both will eat you.
Oh, okay.
Any questions for this area? Oh, I guess we didn't cover anything.
Yeah, we went on tangents a little bit.
Yeah. So sightings data present in these areas seem to be a mix of seasonal and nomadicy. It seems to be mostly they are staying in one area for a period and then moving on to the next established area. Like we said, that's kind of nomadicy. Some of these movements seem to be seasonal.
Mm-hmm.
Others seem to be food availability. And others just seem to not want to stay in that same place for that long. So some of these just seem, from the data I was looking at, that they just move.
Yeah.
And that's more of a true nomadicy. They're not leaving because of a food. There's not more food available in this area versus this area. There's a little bit of that when we look at some types of, vegetation that produces fruit when that's available and stuff like that. So it's a little seasonal, but it's mostly just pure nomadicy.
Yeah.
Any questions about that?
I don't know if I have anything off the top of my head. I just, I don't know too many, Texas stories or...
No, Texas is a hot spot.
I guess I just don't know too many of them. I can't imagine, but I just picture,
I
Texas
think Big Thicket is in Texas.
Mm.
That's a big thing in the Bigfoot community.
Is that like a Bigfoot?
No, it's an area. Big Thicket. I think it's a state forest.
Oh, okay.
It's like their salt fork. I think that's in Texas.
Oh, gotcha. All right, now I'm on the same page. I don't know. Yeah, I don't got too much for this area.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much just a college course for you right now.
Yeah.
About migration. Desert regions of the U.S. This is the one I had the most trouble with. I don't know a lot about it. This is the one area I haven't done a lot of previous research in. So this area is kind of up in the air for me, but we'll go through it. Includes New Mexico, California, Colorado, Texas, Utah, Arizona, Nevada, and California. Like I said, Texas kind of gets pushed into a lot of these categories because Texas is very diverse.
And it's huge.
Mm-hmm. This habitat is genuinely dominated by forest and high mountain ranges. And we're going to go over what a paradise location is.
Yeah, I see that.
Bigfoot is still seen in these areas, but they are hard to make educated guesses in this area about what kind of movement they're doing. It seems to be extremely large home ranges that center around some sort of paradise area, i.e. Water sources, forest, a certain mountain, but it's not an area I haven't heavily researched.
Yeah.
So this is kind of one of mine that are just up in the air.
Well, I don't think of a Bigfoot in the desert, really,
There's
area.
Seen, like, the Labrador Sandman, that's Monsters Among Us, Derek. He talks about that one. They have something coming out on Labrador. Here's a documentary coming out here soon that me and Emily we're excited for. I can't think of Labrador Triangle. I'm so bad with names. But yeah, the California Watchers. There's Sasquatch-like entities that stand on top of the ridge and just watch you pass. Yeah, so there are, and there's, like I said, there's forest in this area.
Yeah.
It's not just desert.
Right.
I don't think there's any habitat that they don't take advantage of. I think the population is probably lower, and a lot of these Sasquatch that are seen out here are thin.
Okay.
They're not our big lumbering guys. They're not our... It seems on our side, they're shorter and stockier, and then when you get over to the Pacific, they're giants. That's when you get your max size Sasquatch. I really think they max out. Personally, at size, 9 foot. I think that's really maybe 10, but I really think that's about as big you're going to get. I've heard these stories of 15 footers, and we talk about that about every episode. I don't think they get that big. Gigantopithecus got that big, so it's not impossible,
I bet there's like, every once in just like human beings, there's some giants.
There could be.
Like some of them just break through,
but
big.
You're talking. That's a lot. We talked about poundage.
Yeah, a lot.
Difference per foot of poundage, and the evidence that creature's going to leave is a lot heavier than the evidence an 8-foot creature's going to leave.
Right.
So, not saying it's. I guess that's just I don't swallow that pill. Doesn't mean it's not.
Well, I wonder,
possible. It's just not what I believe.
I also wonder too if they have availability to more access to food and stuff, more nutrition.
That's called undetermined growth rate.
Yeah.
It's very extremely rare in mammals.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And as far as I know, it's pretty much unheard of in mammals.
Yeah.
Reptiles and fish have it. Amphibians have it. Birds don't have it, as far as I know. And there's normally exceptions to every rule.
Mm-hmm.
But undetermined growth rate is mostly a cold-blooded thing.
Well, I mean,
because you need it to go the other way.
Well, that's what human beings go the other way when they keep on.
But we don't get taller.
Exactly, the other way. We get more width.
Yeah. So that's fat storage. I guess undetermined growth rate is your whole physique is growing.
Everything, the whole body itself.
When it's food availability.
Spine and...
And not saying fish can't get fat, because there are fat fish, but it's just because their body physically cannot grow faster than the food they're intaking, so they're saving that. Our bodies don't. We hit our growth plates and stuff like that. We have the
limits. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang biology. I want to be 9 foot tall. Be pretty sweet. I'd go live in the woods.
Jay, I would settle for 5'10".
For me or you?
For you.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm 6 foot and I fluff my hair.
I was going to say, wait, why are you settling for that?
Jay is 5 foot tall.
Yep.
Anybody at home?
Yeah, only when I wear my big shoes.
How tall actually are you?
5'6".
Okay. I'm right at 5'10".
Okay.
So I'm not a tall man either, but I'm 400 pounds.
Right.
I'm built like an oak barrel. All right. Any more questions for this area?
An oak barrel. No.
So we're gonna talk about driving forces of migration. Do you like how this is just a college level class?
You're right. Yeah.
If anybody can't tell, I've had a lot of experience teaching classes for various subjects. That's kind of what I'm doing right now. Driving forces of migration, food sources, breeding and child rearing, habitat usage, predation, and human activities. And this is specifically geared towards Sasquatch activity.
Okay.
So let's talk about food sources. That's probably... I guess another one I could add on here is weather. But like I said earlier, I do not believe that's a big driving force.
Mm-hmm.
They can handle... They're in Alaska. They can handle the cold. It's not... I don't think that's the driving force. But that could be on here.
Yeah.
So food sources, just availability, These are big animals. And I believe, most people tend to look at them like big black bears with their diet. A big vegetation-based diet with another big chunk of their diet being small animals.
Mm-hmm. Talking
frogs, that kind of stuff. And then maybe predation every once in a while of larger game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think these things are, wrecking elk every other day. But,
even though...
I do think... Not saying they're not possible. It's just...
They could.
I think that this may be they deer every once in a while. I think they'll scavenge off of fresh roadkill. I do not think they will... so it's called carrion.
Okay.
I do not think they're carrion eaters. Unlike when you talk about, a lot of dogmen have been seen eating some rough... canids will eat carrion.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of primates won't mess with it.
Yeah.
Digestive systems. And we're assuming that Bigfoot is somewhere on the primate family tree. Most people seem to fall with that. Breeding and child rearing. So they could... Another driving force is just meeting individuals outside of your home ranges and stuff for breeding, for genetics.
Yeah.
And then child rearing. Going to safer areas to raise younger children. I think that's what Hocking Forest may be.
Is like a
even though it's high people
incubation area, maybe.
Yeah, it's just for their first couple months when the baby's real young, needs a lot of care.
Some
That's where they go.
Training grounds.
Yeah. A lot of people habitat usage. They may get more out of an area like in the winter. There may be caves available in an area, or that they'd use in the winter versus the summer. They don't need them in the summer as much, so they don't hang out there.
Yeah.
The area may not be as good for other things. So, like, the summer food availability is not very high, but
right,
during the winter, you can get out of the wind. And just because these things can handle the weather doesn't mean they want to.
Right, yeah.
Nobody wants to stand in the wind. I don't care how tough you are. Mastodons are not going to stand in the wind
if they don't have to. Yeah.
They're perfectly capable to do it. But, they're going to find a little bit of cover.
It gets annoying.
So that's habitat usage. Predation. I don't think this is a big factor. I think that they may be worried about it a bit with the young. So they may go to safer locations.
I imagine they're in the top of the food chain.
Yeah, I don't think they're not by any means, but I'm mostly talking about younger individuals.
Right, yeah.
From their foot size, I think a lot of Bigfoot baby tracks that we have are like 4 inches long.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like a 4 or 5 year old.
Yeah.
So, mountain lion, that's pretty easy. Even a bobcat.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
So, you may go to safer locations for that short time that they are very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. And then human activities. I think they do avoid some areas sometimes. But that's kind of, I don't know. Just one thing that's kind of up there on the, on the chalkboard. They may be doing, they may be moving out of areas when human activities get extremely high.
Yeah.
But yeah. Any thoughts on any of these?
I think the two main ones probably are going to be the food sources and the human activities.
Oh, do you?
That's what I think so, yeah.
I'm food sources in breeding and child rearing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of their nomadic lifestyle is food-based.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of maybe bigger migrations are breeding-based.
Okay.
That's when most animals in the world that do migrate are breeding-based.
Yeah.
Like geese, ducks, and stuff, why they fly? So they fly south and they meet all kinds of other geese and ducks from all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they'll pick partners.
Yeah.
And then they'll fly back, and they always go back to where the female's from.
Okay.
So that's how ducks and geese and stuff have the giant mixes of genetics.
Huh. Pretty efficient.
Mm-hmm. It works.
It's freaking birds. You can't trust them.
You can't trust a bird.
Never.
Chickens, maybe. Anyways, anything else on these?
Nope.
And that's it.
Oh, interesting.
So that's kind of a rough synopsis of Bigfoot migration, definitions, stuff like that. Kind of, just a rough idea of how this stuff works.
Right. So if you ever hear like anyone talking about, migration or stuff on TV or any other podcasts and stuff, maybe now you at least get an understanding of what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Or you can spot their mistakes or things like that.
Mm-hmm. Migration isn't just these long distance things. And I think that's the biggest thing that I'm getting at is that people assume when they hear migration, you're assuming an animal's going 1,200 miles,
mm-hmm.
or like the monarch migration, or ducks and geese that
fly
2,000 miles.
Yep.
Migration doesn't have. Tiger salamanders migrate, and they go 12 miles.
And, we didn't even touch on the eel migration. I mean, to that one place.
Yeah, that's like 7,000 or 8,000 miles for some of these eels.
And that's the most extreme example, probably.
Yeah, maybe more. For some eels.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm trying to think. 2,500, about 5,000-6,000 miles for most of them.
Which is insane.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
So, yeah.
Anything else to add? We have 7 minutes before I have to hit stop.
Oh, I wonder how. I would like to. It would be cool to get data on like a big. If you actually could just get a tracking device on a Bigfoot. Just see how far some of them do migrate.
Oh, that's the other thing. They're large. They can go far fast.
What?
Elk can do 40 or 50 miles in a day.
And I've heard stories of like, the same thing with Bigfoot doing 40, 50 miles like one way in a day and then making it back that night. Like that's
long strides, efficient walks, that's nothing. That's not big. Big numbers. So just because they're going, some of these longer ones I have marked are 400 or 500 miles.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think the longest one I actually had marked on my little map was like 350, but that's a week and a half.
Yeah.
If they're making a lot of stops and hiding. So it's not like it's months. It's not like you walking from northern Michigan, and I'm talking about the UP, I'm talking about the lower peninsula,
Yeah.
the northern part of that, to southern Ohio. That'd take you months.
Yeah, months.
It takes them probably 2 weeks.
Yeah, if
Because they're
that.
taking breaks.
Yeah, if they wanted to, it could probably be faster.
I think they could probably do it in a week.
Yeah.
If they were
Determined.
moving. All right. Well, I've been Justin,
And
the Swamp Thing England.
Oh, the Swamp Thing.
What are you picking?
Oh man, I'm just plain old Jay today.
All right, you got to do.
I did the last one, I think.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure I did the. We just did one. It was that lizard.
Oh yeah, I'll do the Hodag then.
Oh, the Hodag.
Yeah, I'm looking at. I just looked at him.
Is that the worm? That's the worm, right?
No, that's that green guy.
Oh, that's the green guy. Okay.
There you go. All right, guys. We'll catch you. I think this is going to be a double upload week. So we'll catch you real soon. Peace.
92% of households that start the year with Peloton are still active a year later.
92% because of a bike?
Not just bikes. We also make treadmills and rowers.
Oh, let me guess, for elite athletes only, right?
Nope. It doesn't matter if you're an avid exerciser or new to working out. Peloton can help you achieve your fitness goals. 92% stick with it. So can you. Try Peloton bikes, tread, or row risk-free with a 30-day home trial. New members only. Not available in remote locations. See additional terms at onepeloton.com/home-trial.